Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
The times that we're living in right now, very challenging, especially for our teenagers. And that's not just coming from me, that's coming from the CDC, which reports that we have a mental health crisis going on with teens right now, especially teenage girls. I think the stat is right around 53% have even thought about taking their own lives. So it's a big deal. We're going to talk about that today and what we can do to help save our kids. She is somebody that's created a ministry, a great organization that helps destigmatize mental health and helps youth and teens dealing with lots of challenges. It is called Hu'Mend. And she's back with us. She's amazing. Coach Key joins us on the program. Welcome back. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm so happy that we're talking about this today because it's been in the news. I don't believe there's been enough dialogue about it. And I'm gonna go for the throat before we even begin. Uh, Two words: social media.
Mm-hmm.
I
Social media.
truly believe as a father of two teens, one that lives with me, um, social media is such a great thing and such a horrible thing at the same time. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm from the age where we had dial-up and we were still figuring out, what this internet thing was.
Oh yeah.
And I think and I think our kids came along and pretty much took over, and they've been very innovative. This generation has been very innovative. And it creates a means to an end as far as communication, keeping in contact with each other, uh, you know, uh, petitioning for campaigns that one believes in. But at the same time, it's also been a thorn in the side for us parents, and to see what all that's available on social media. I think they have access to too much information
Yeah.
at such a
And
young age.
and then we get into the other challenges with uh comparison,
Yes.
bullying, all of that going on now.
Mm-hmm.
It's the bullies existed. I mean, I was bullied, and it had such a major impact on my life. And I didn't realize it until later in life, until I started, the hypnotherapy. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Oh, okay. That's why I do this. That's why I did that. But in this instance with social media, anybody with a keyboard can be a bully. And they're not even confronting you. They're
They're
hiding
not.
behind a device.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are. You know, I survived bullying in high school, but that was face to face. I could at least defend myself.
Yes, exactly right. Yeah, for sure.
But
I don't know what the answer is though, yeah, because you can't take away the device from your kids because then, they're going to become the outcast. Oh, Becky doesn't have a phone anymore. Ha ha. And then eventually she's going to get it back. And of course, your kids need it for safety reasons nowadays anyway. So I
Mhm,
honestly don't know what the answer is. And
mhm.
what are your thoughts there on what can be done within social media?
Well, so I was doing a little bit of research, and Common Sense Media shows that social media usage for teens, it's increased since the COVID-19 pandemic. I mean, it has skyrocketed than the previous 4 years before, the
Sure.
pandemic started.
And
And
by the way, I
so
just want to jump in and say, okay, that's a good thing. Teens were isolated, so that brought them together. So
it
they're,
did.
check mark.
Yeah.
However, look what happened as a result of COVID and that extra social media use with the CDC reports that we're talking about, right?
Exactly. Because right now, the stats show that 8 to 12-year-olds, they spend an average of about 5 hours in front of the screen, and that's a lot. I
Yeah.
mean, that impedes on their health, that impedes on social skills, that impedes on connectivity and being
Mm,
social with family and friends in real life in real time. And you mentioned comparison, and that is that is the most, and I think we all do that, even as, even if we're not on social media, we
Sure.
get into the comparison game with other people, and look at our disadvantages and their advantages, and it causes us to spiral. I know it causes me to spiral. But I think it's a really delicate area for our children, because they're growing and they're developing their self-image, and when they compare themselves to all these influencers who make it seem like their life is so grandiose, it really can leave a bad scar, a bad taste in their mouth. And that leads to things like body image, having negative body image, you know and their mental health, because they're so busy thinking about what's wrong with them that they can't see what's right. And I it's very sad. It saddens me so much to know that there are some teens who have, you know, um, attempted suicide or died by suicide because of cyberbullying, because it takes on a life of its own. And once it's out there, it's hard to get it back. Once you put something on social media, it's there forever.
Yeah. I say that all the time. You're broadcasting, and
Yeah.
and it can impact your career years
Yeah.
later. It can impact your school records, because
Yes.
if there's a confrontation or something going on, now it's documented. It's all
Exactly.
there. They can trace it back. All that stuff you say, you put out there, and, and teens, the crazy part is it's social media, but it's not social. It's like an
Exactly.
oxymoron.
It is. And I'll tell you another thing that I found out, that, it coincides with my ministry, but it should be on the radar for everyone, is the rates have scored highest among Black and Hispanic Latino kids and those of lower income families. Now they're spending an average of 7 hours on social media and other
Wow.
platforms.
Wow.
And so I was like, wow, and they make it like you can, there are programs that they have for those in lower income areas, that they will put, get you a cell phone, they will get you a computer, and you have access to the internet, because they're using that as a tool to help them in school. But of course, our kids, with their curiosity, they're going to go and use it for something else. But that's very alarming to me to know that um, it has increased in lower income communities, because again, that comparison comes up, and that can wreak havoc on anybody's mental illness or mental state. I mean,
What do you think the answer is, or is there an answer? I'm honestly, I'm clueless here. I don't know where to go with it. Limiting time on devices as a parent, I maybe that would work. Um, I,
mhm.
I can say straight out that putting filters on the devices in terms of time limits, those loosely work. But I've got a friend who works for IBM, high level guy, and he has teens. And I've researched all of the apps, all of the programs. I really have. It's been a couple of years, but I went through all of them. And I wanted to at least filter content and do all of that. And I said, none of these are working. Kids can they figure it out, especially Apple, which doesn't want you to really get any kind of hands around what they do. So I said, Mike, what do you do with your kids? You're a computer genius. What do you do? And he looks at me and he says, I do one thing. I'm like, okay, tell me. I got to know. He said, I talk to my kids. He goes, none of those apps work. They don't. I'm like, well, thanks for backing that up, because I
Mhm.
spend money, time, tech support, even complaining, and I never complained. But I
Mhm.
was like, how can you put this out when it's not working? But that's what he said. You got to talk to your kids. You have to have that open dialogue.
You do have to have open dialogue, and you have to lead by example as well. I mean, it's more of a, you don't want it to be a do as I say, not as I do. You want to mirror those healthy habits. And
Sure.
I commend him for having conversations with his children, because that exactly is the thing that will work. Um, there are there are parents do have access to different tools to help them with cell phone usage and
Sure.
other media usage. And I know that healthychildren.org, they have uh, a 10 question survey that helps you gauge if you're ready for your child to have access to a cell phone, or if your child is ready to have access to a cell phone, because we know that cell phones are inevitably the connection on the go. And a lot of children have access to cell phones because we need them for safety reasons. So I think what we can do as parents is fortify ourselves with knowledge when it comes to the internet, when it comes to social media.
Mm.
Don't be afraid to check your children's phone. Don't be afraid to do that, because there are some parents who are afraid to even check to see, what they're searching, what they have access to,
Yeah.
who they've been communicating with. Because we come across sexting, loss of privacy to predators, and again, that cyberbullying.
You're
We
right.
need to be able to have that intervention, which your friend says that, just sitting down, having a conversation and creating a dialogue around these things. Like, what platform do you enjoy the most and why? And who are you meeting on this platform? And can I meet them? Is there something that I can do to um, help you understand and navigate, social media and the internet? There's a wealth of things that we can talk about, but we have to not be afraid to have those conversations, because it's really needed.
Mm. You bring up a really good point. There are some parents that don't even look at their kids' phones,
Mm-hmm.
don't even have a passcode or something to access it. A lot of times it's facial recognition or fingerprint or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But there can be two methods to access the phone, or say, give me your phone and open it up. Just out of fear that they don't want to invade their kids' privacy. And I understand that to a degree, but there needs to be an open policy. If I want to look at your phone,
Mm-hmm.
you will open it up for me.
Mm-hmm.
And whether you do or not, that's another thing. You're paying for the phone more times than not.
Exactly.
So
Mm-hmm.
you should have that access. But a lot of parents are afraid because I do believe that some parents want to be the cool parent. They want to be, sort of a friend and a parent at the same time, which is a very delicate balance. Um, Moving past social media and devices, and we're talking about, this crisis going on within our teens right now, which is your organization is so impactful in helping that, especially the mental health aspect of it. What else can we do, Coach Key, to save our kids?
Well, there's several things, when it comes to, social media and the internet, when it comes to just our children in general, they need a break. I know that in the quote unquote adult world, we're always petitioned to, incorporate meditation, or incorporate vacations, incorporate, again, that disconnect from the world and practice self-care. Well, that's one of the things that we can encourage our kids to do as well. They need to take a break. They need, a break from school. They need a break from their peers. They need a break from life as well. I mean, because they experience challenges just as much as we do. And I think, one of the reasons why, social media and the internet is so prevalent is because they're using that as a tool to take a break. They're using that as a tool to, disconnect from the real world, and they
Mm,
succumb to all of the things that are out there. So real breaks, vacations, staycations, helping with dinner, sitting down talking, having that one-on-one connection. And that helps them to see life from a different lens, because they know that the door is open to come to you and get advice that they're looking for, and it creates a safe zone for them. Another thing that we can do is like I said before, lead by example. Turn off the
mm,
notifications on your phone. You don't need to know what's going on all the time. Encourage your kids to turn off the notifications on their phones, on their computers, because that triggers them to want to look and to see what they're missing because they have that fear of missing out.
Yeah.
And one of the things that is youth engaged for change. They provide, peer advice to teens and young adults as far as, what is a healthy relationship when it comes to social media and the internet. One of the piece of advice that they gave was that if you are friends with someone that is participating in cyberbullying or that's showing disrespect to other people, it's okay to unfriend. It's okay to unfriend them. You don't have to stay a friend with them. And they encourage that a lot because that only puts fuel on the fire when it comes to um, having a healthy relationship with those who we interact with online. But to me, the most powerful tool is, again, just like your friend said, have conversations with your kids. Don't be afraid to have conversations. Don't be afraid to ask those tough questions. Don't be afraid to check the phone. Don't be afraid to say what it is that you're thinking and that you feel about their internet usage.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like what you said there about don't be afraid to unfriend somebody or disconnect from them. But I think we also have to teach our kids that specifically there may be people in your world that don't serve you.
Mm-hmm.
They're not a good fit for you. And I do believe that a lot of our teens, they know it. They just
Mm-hmm.
they don't want to admit it. They know that this one particular friend is never there when they need them. It's one-sided, but they don't disconnect from them.
Right.
And it's got to be taught that, yeah, that's okay. And you know what? People are in your life for a reason or a season. I firmly believe that. And maybe down the road, that might be the reason they're back in your life. I remember Mike Harrison in elementary school. Oh, we used to fight all the time. We used to rumble on the playground. It was horrible. Then we got to junior high school. Guess what? He became one of my best friends. Why? Because we had something in common. We were both getting bullied. So
Mm,
we had each other's back um, in a big way. So, and I
that's
remained,
awesome.
and then as fate went on, I went into a broadcast career. He actually went into a journalism career. Who would have thunk? you know,
Wow.
and he lives in a different state, but we still. And actually, I hired him a couple of years ago to do some writing for me. I have a marketing company, so you never know what's going to happen down the road. But man, if you ask me in sixth grade, this guy's horrible. He's
Yeah.
beating the out of each other, literally rumbling on the playground. But you never know how things are going to turn out. So I think we need to echo those things to our teens that if it's not right at that moment in your life, it's okay. All right, tap the brakes on that person.
Yeah.
And I don't know how, in terms of Snapchat, if you disconnect from somebody, if they're aware of it, I have to look and see if that's a probability. But even so what? it's
Mm-hmm.
it's all
Mm-hmm.
good. How about some
Mm-hmm.
other thoughts in the time we have left? How we can save our kids?
Well, it would be great for us to, make those connections and have those conversations with the resources that we have in our lives, such as teachers. We have to be willing to have conversations, amongst parents. We have to be able to um, campaign for safety for our kids when it comes to being exposed to a number of different things on social media. There is a safety act that I do want to talk about. It's called Project Liberty Action Network. And this is where we get involved with the lawmakers, with the change makers, in order to rally together to make the internet a safer place. And if you want to know more about it, it's projectaction.com. But we have to be willing to have those conversations with those behind the cloak of social media, those, who are, overseeing these different media platforms and what they can do to make the internet a safer place, to make social media a safer place for our youth.
Hmm.
But the thing is, we have to take action. We have to take action now. It's very apparent that the internet, social media is not the world that was designed with kids in mind. It just wasn't. It just wasn't. But again, they've become so innovative, and they've, connected with it, and they've created a world of their own, which they can succumb to if they don't have the necessary support.
Yeah. On the plus side with all of this, it starts with a younger generation. So
Mm-hmm.
Facebook came out, 2008-ish, around
Mm-hmm.
there. Um, that was younger people.
It
Older
was.
people really weren't on that. Now it's more of an older demographic on Facebook, call it 40s, 50s plus. Um, and then the younger generation gravitated over to Instagram, then over to Snap, then over to TikTok. So there's a lot of pluses there in terms of turning the rest of us onto, this technology. However, it can be harmful if it's
Mm-hmm.
not done correctly, or we don't watch it as parents. For
Mm-hmm.
your ministry, Coach Key, are you available to help anybody in the country, or is it just in your area?
Well, I'm able to help anyone in the country, and they can learn more about, my ministry and what it is that I do at www.humend, HUMEND network.com. And they're able to schedule a free consultation with me. I do in person and virtual, so they have
Mm,
access to me, and we can get connected to peers in your area, professionals such as therapists and psychologists, that can really complement the services and get you to a place where you're feeling more of a sense of control, and push past any limitations that you or anyone has placed on yourself, such as bullying. We talk about that a lot too. And so that's something that's a topic that, again, is close to my heart as well, because I was bullied
yeah.
in school, and just like you said, you were bullied as well. I think there are a number of us who were bullied, but again, there's not a real major conversation around that either, and that's a topic for another day. But
Yeah,
yeah,
well,
we
you
do
think
provide
about
that.
back in the day, I'm just throwing numbers out there, but if most kids, teens, prior to technology like this,
Hmm.
if it was like 30 or 40% of us were bullied, now I got to believe it's like 80%
Yes.
because of in some shape or form because of social media. How do we find you, Coach Key? The network, what's the website?
It's www.humend network.com.
I love the name. I told you that last time, and I love the connection to, and I see it in the background there
Hmm.
of mending in terms
Yes.
of sewing, mending. We're humans, because it's like we're putting us back together again. We've kind of,
Yes.
we've ripped a little bit, if you will,
Yes.
uh,
Yeah.
because of a lot of these things that are going on nowadays. And I thank you so much for being here today and what you do, and I look forward next time we get a chance to get together.
Thank you so much for having me, and have a great one. Thank you.
You too. Thanks, Coach Key.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.